everyone, welcome to IAS Baba. We are going to start with Mains Rapid Revision series and I'll be taking your GS2 Polity and Governance part. In today's discussion, we will be taking up the sector of reservation. See, reservation as a topic, as a policy is very important for your upcoming mains examination, as well as recent developments have been taken up by the government, by the judiciary. Various judgments have been come in regarding the reservation policy. And in this lecture, we will be understanding what is the policy of reservation, what is the basic timeline that you should be keeping in mind while studying the reservation, as well as recently 106th Constitution Amendment Act has been passed by the Parliament, which is talking about giving reservation, giving political reservation to women. And recently, the Supreme Court of India has upheld the constitutional validity of 103rd Constitution Amendment Act, which is talking about economically weaker section. And again, this topic of reservation, the policy of reservation was in the news recently because of the Supreme Court judgment, which has came in and has talked about that we are going to subcategorize. Now, the states can subcategorize between the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in India. There can be subcategorization of caste, just like OBC. Right. So, let's start the discussion. First is that why we are reading the topic of reservation. First thing is there has been subcategorization which is permissible within scheduled caste to give separate quotas for more backward. This is held by the Supreme Court with 7-judge bench. Now, this judgment is really important for your upcoming mains examination. First of all, it has just recently came in, and earlier, there was only used to be talk of OBC, right? There has to be subcategorization under OBC. Many of you must be knowing about creamy layer concept. But Supreme Court in the recent judgment has said that now the states can also classify that what are the more backward classes under the scheduled caste. So this makes your topic of reservation, your chances of coming this topic in your mains examination becomes very high, right? So we'll be starting first with some basics. Now, what is policy of reservation? See, when the Constitution of India was enacted in 1950, it provided reservation only to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, and that too in Lok Sabha only, right? In the Lok Sabha only, or the House of People, there was reservation that has to be provided by the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. There was no talk of giving reservation to other communities, or there was no talk about there has to be reservation in other institutions like educational institutions or government job. So now when this talk of reservation began to came in, see, this was the enacting year, and prior to that in 1927, there was a communal order that was published by the Madras government under the British rule. That communal order was trying to give protection to certain communities in the region of Madras by providing them reservation in educational institution and in government job. Why this communal order was there? Why there was communal order? Because in Madras, there was a typical community of Brahmins. Those people used to dominate over all the resources, all the economic resources, all the natural resources, right? So, in order to fight with them, because they were just having 2 to 4% of the total population, rest of the community was neglected of the economic resources as well as the natural resources. And in order to protect the rights of the other communities, the Britishers passed this particular communal order under the Madras government, that too in 1927. But when this constitution was enacted in 1950, there was fundamental rights like Article 14, which is talking about right to equality. There was Article 15, which was talking about that that the state should not discriminate on certain grounds, right? On the basis of religion, on the basis of caste. And there was another article, that is Article 16 from Fundamental Rights, which was talking about that everyone in India should be having equality in public employment. So when the constitution was enacted in India, right, that was giving the fundamental rights to the citizen. This communal order was contrary to that, and this communal order was challenged under which judgment of the Supreme Court? Under which case of the Supreme Court? Right, it was challenged under Champakam Durai Rajan case. Under the Champakam Durai Rajan case, this communal order of the Madras government was challenged, and Supreme Court said that no, it is unconstitutional, that those provisions there in the communal order, they are unconstitutional and they should not be living in the free India. So in order to overturn the judgment of the Supreme Court, the Indian Parliament passed the first Constitutional Amendment Act of 1951, which provided for reservation to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe under Article 15 and under Article 16 by adding new clauses to it. I hope that everyone is clear about what happened in Champakam Durai Rajan, what were the articles of the fundamental rights that were challenged in Champakam Durai Rajan, and why the government of India came up with first Constitution Amendment Act, thereby providing scheduled caste and scheduled tribe certain set of reservation in educational institution in Article 15 and as well as government job under Article 16. So now this situation of from 1951, it continued till 1980s and nothing happened, right? There was a talk of reservation for giving to SC and ST community. There was no change, there was no demands from the other community. But in 1980s, the President of India under Article 340 set up the Mandal Commission. Right? Why the President of India set up the Mandal Commission? Because under Article 340 of the Indian Constitution, President of India has the authority to appoint such a commission that will look into the status, that will look into the backwardness of the communities, that needs to be provided certain set of positive affirmative action from the state. So that is why the President appointed Mandal Commission, and Mandal Commission, everyone knows that it came up with number of recommendations, and these recommendations of the Mandal Commission, it was challenged in Indira Sahani judgment. Right? This recommendation of the Mandal Commission, which the government tried to implement through a executive order, it was the government of VP Singh which tried to, implement the recommendation of Mandal Commission that there has to be 27% reservation to OBC, and there has to be certain set of protection that has to be given to other backward classes in India. Now, this recommendation of the Mandal Commission was implemented through a executive order and not by a law, right? So this was challenged under the Indira Sahni judgment. I hope that everyone knows this basic timeline of the reservation in India, right? Under Indira Sahni judgment, Supreme Court came up with number of judgment. For example, there should be a ceiling limit of 50%, right? There should not be a reservation on the basis of economic criteria, right? Supreme Court under Indira Sahni judgment said that there can't be reservation under the economic criteria. And yes, students, recently the Parliament in 2019 tried to amend the constitution and gave the reservation to economically weaker sections of the society. Now, this amendment was done in 2019. This 2019 amendment of the amendment done by the Parliament, it tried to overturn the judgment of Supreme Court in Indira Sahni case, right? So this is just a basic timeline that all of you should be aware of. Now let's come to the major topic, that is 106th Constitution Amendment Act that was passed in 2023. Now, this topic is actually very important because in your recently prelims examination, the question came from this particular amendment. Again, I'm saying that this topic is very relevant for your mains examination, not just the amendment part, that why there is a demand for providing reservation to women when we have already provided the reservation to women in the local government. I hope that everyone knows that in panchayats and in municipality, there is at least 33% of reservation in the local government. Then why there was a need to provide reservation for women in politics at the upper level of the government, at the national politics? Why there was a demand for it? Now, the question can be framed from that why political reservation is important, why these steps that were taken for economic empowerment, that were taken for social empowerment, right? Why they were a failure? Why even after 75 years of independence that there is a need to give reservation to women? Why there is a need for political empowerment of women? Now, in such type of dimension, question can be framed in your mains examination. So, you should be knowing this particular topic in detail. So, let's start with it. First is why political reservation. You need to understand that in India, in Indian society, women, even if they are economically empowered, or even they are socially empowered, how does a woman in India associate herself? Woman in India does not associate herself as an economically empowered woman or a socially empowered woman, but women in India associate herself as a mother of son, wife of a husband, or daughter of a father. Her association, her identity is associated with the other gender, that is male, right? So there is a need, apart from economic empowerment and social empowerment, to give to the women the political empowerment. Why there is a need? For example, from Indira Nooyi to Indira Gandhi, in various sectors, be it political sector or corporate sector, women in India have proved that they can go for the leadership role. And if the political reservation is provided, what would happen? What would be the positives of it? First, the amplification of women's issue. That women's issue will be a talk of thing at the national level, at the parliament. Various policies will be made for the women by the woman herself. See, as of now, the policies for women are being made by the men, right? So they are not able to or relate with the problems of a woman in India. So amplification of women's issue, then changing stereotypes that women can also be a part of a political sphere, that women can also lead the national level, that women can also be there in the political party, right? So it will help in changing stereotypes, and there could be n number of possibilities that political reservation, if made, it will bring a lot of positives to women's image, right? So there is a need of political reservation. Now, why there is a need of political reservation? You can use this data. See, this data of Lok Sabha is from previous Lok Sabha, right? That out of 545 members, there were only 78 women who were there sitting in the parliament. And now this number has reduced to 74. Can you understand the dire need of giving reservation to women in political sphere? That women in India accounts for almost 50% of the population. That they are almost 50% of the population. But their representation in politics, it is almost 13 or 14%. Even in recently held elections in Lok Sabha, there were only 74 women who were parliamentarians. And all of you know that there are almost 28 states in India, right? And we have only one chief minister as woman. That is the CM of Bengal. That is Mamata Banerjee. So why the other states can't have a woman chief minister? Why there are not enough number of parliamentarians as women? So these are some of questions that we have to ask ourselves. See, it is not only giving or recognizing this problem at the societal level. We have to also understand as our responsibility that women may be economically empowered, women may be socially empowered, but she has to associate herself as a woman first, right? She can take decisions and she can build decisions on her own. Right. Same is the condition with the state legislative assembly. See, this is the data which you can see, and Kerala, which is a state with having highest literacy rate in India, is having almost less than 10%, almost less than 10% as women politicians in their state legislative assembly. So there is a need for giving political reservation because of political disparity which is growing day by day between men and women at the national politics and state politics. Now, I hope that everyone knows some of the provision, but if you use certain articles in your mains examination, it will help you to enrich your answers. So Article 330A of this Act, it is talking about giving reservation to women in Lok Sabha, right? That is 33%. Now, please remember that it is not giving reservation to women in Rajya Sabha. Whereas Article 332A is talking about giving reservation to women in state legislative assemblies and not legislative councils. Again, the number is same, that is 33%. Then we have Article 239AA. It is talking about giving reservation to NCT Delhi. That is National Capital Territory of Delhi. And the last article is 334A, which is talking about when this particular reservation bill, when this idea of giving reservation to women will actually be implemented. That is, it is talking about delimitation, right? See, you need to understand that, or a question can be framed as, at the surface, at the soil level, it may seem that the Parliament has passed the Women Reservation Act by giving reservation to women in India. But the reality is, there is two things that is attached with this bill. First is delimitation, and the second is census. See, these are the two blocks which the government has attached with this bill, right? First is talking about delimitation, that until and unless delimitation exercises is conducted by the government or the census is conducted by the government, there is no, or there would be no implementation of this reservation policy. That is, only after delimitation exercise and census being conducted by the central government, then only the provisions of reservation is applicable. So this is the major criticism of this bill, right? That you can refer in your answer. And one more thing associated with women's reservation is, it is not a gift, but a long denied right. Right. See, this statement can be asked in your mains examination, that it is not a gift by the government, because this demand of giving reservation to women has been in terms even after passing the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, that is giving reservation to women in Panchayati Raj institutions, right? So there has been talk of giving reservation from 1993, right? So it is being implemented almost 20 years afterwards, that is in 2024. So in this way, you have to go for the 106th Constitutional Amendment Act, that is about the giving reservation to women in the political sphere. Now, 103rd Amendment Act, even though this Constitution Amendment Act is quite, old, that is talking about giving reservation to EWS, and it added two provisions in the Article 15 and Article 16, right? It added two more clauses in the fundamental rights of 15 and 16. That is, it is talking about giving reservation to economically weaker section in educational institutions, and this particular Article 16 is talking about giving reservation to economically weaker section in government jobs. So when this act, this Constitution Amendment Act was passed by the Parliament, it came into a lot of controversy that it is against the Indira Sahani judgment of Supreme Court. First, the controversy was related to Indira Sahani judgment. The second controversy was related to that it is exceeding the ceiling limit of 50%, right? It is giving reservation to over 50%. That is, over this, there is 10% more reservation. And one more controversy around this, that it is against the Article 14, which is talking about right to equality. So, because of all these reasons, this 103rd Constitution Amendment Act of 2019 was in controversy for a good long time, right? But recently, the Supreme Court has upheld this constitutional validity. Supreme Court in Janhit Abhiyan versus Union of India has said that the EWS reservation is constitutionally valid. That there is no problem in giving reservation to economically weaker section. But one thing you need to understand, that there was a 5-judge bench and the decision came in 3:2. The 3 judges supported the reservation being provided to economically weaker section, and 2 judges were against this EWS reservation system. So now let's understand that what the Supreme Court said, right? What the Supreme Court said, that how it is constitutionally valid. First, Supreme Court said that it is not violative of Article 14. It is not violative of Article 15 or 16, as there could be a number of people who are economically backward also, right? It is not only that we can decide the backwardness of a community on the basis of caste, on the basis of class, but there can be economic criteria also while determining whether a particular community or a caste is economically backward or not. That economic criteria could one of the reason for giving reservation to the persons in India. Whereas the dissenting judges held that EWS reservation is going totally against the Article 14. But it came with the judgment of, but it came with 3:2 judgment. So 3 judges held that yes, EWS reservation is not going against the concept of equality. It may be against the Indira Sahni judgment, but the situation that were present in 1992 when the Indira Sahni judgment came in were different. But as of now, the need is there to provide reservation to different sections on the basis of economic criteria also, right? So now, what are the issues associated with reservation, right? Reservation as a policy is focusing on equity and not on justice. Equity stands for treating unequals as equal by giving special protection to a particular community. Equity says that yes, there is a need to treat unequals with equals on a special protection, a special protection has to be given to them. Affirmative action has to be taken for them so that there won't be any discrimination among the unequals, right? When they are competing with the equals. This is equity, which calls for short-term goal, right? Equity is short-term goal, but whereas justice, it talks about long-term approach. Justice talks about making infrastructure the best, giving the best quality education to all the people at the school level, at the primary level, so that there would be no need of reservation after 20 years. Justice talks about, or justice calls for, long-term improvement, whereas equity is a short-term approach which is taken by the every government for giving reservation. See, reservation as a policy for upholding equity is not bad, right? It is not against the principle of equality, but the way it is being implemented, it is a questionable thing which can be asked in your mains examination, right? Whereas there is a need to move from just equity to justice, right? If we want to make the best society, then there is a need to move from equity to justice. That is to move from short-term approach to long-term approach. That is to make the infrastructure, to provide everyone with such health infrastructure, with such educational infrastructure, so that after 10 years, after 20 years, there would be no need of giving, reservation, right? But why the government is not interested in implementing justice or going for justice? Why they are only focusing on equity? See, everyone knows that there are some political gains, right? Because long-term approach may be seen after 20 years, 30 years, right? So no political party or no government is interested in upholding the principle of justice. But this you can definitely quote in your way forward, right? That how the reservation should be there in 10 years, in 20 years, and what should be the way forward with dealing with the topic or the policy of reservation. Then you can also quote for 3 E's. That there should be focus on 3 E's. First E is education, then employability, and employment. That the reservation policy should be treated on 3 E's. First is education, employability, and employment. Education talks about reforming the school education system by enhancing the skills of vocational education, etc. into the curriculum. That we should have school infrastructure, a good quality teachers in the school. Whereas employability talks about imparting skills to the people. That it is talking about that everyone should, whoever is going for getting the employment in the market, he should have the employability criteria. He should be skilled enough to get the job in the market. And the third is employment. Be it government employment or private employment, be it public employment or private employment, there should be focus on creating certain infrastructure in India which may generate more employment in the country, so that the reservation policy should be, taken lightly, and there should be focus on the concept of justice rather than equity, because equity is a short-term goal. And this is talking about the justice part, right? So I hope that everyone who's watching the video is able to understand that from where the question can be framed. From the women reservation part, there can definitely be a question on political disparity. On the 103rd Constitution Amendment Act, there can be questions from that whether the EWS reservation is going against the principle of equality, and how the Supreme Court of India uphold the principle of, giving EWS reservation as constitutional. I hope that everyone understood the reservation part. Now, this question was asked in 2019. It reads like, the reservation of seats for women in the institution of local self-government has had a little or limited impact on the patriarchal character of the Indian political process. So you can see that in 2019, a question was asked on the local self-government, right? Reservation of seats in the local self-government that was given under 73rd Constitution Amendment Act of 1993, right? This was asked in 2019, a direct question from 73rd Constitution Amendment Act of 1993. So now you can expect a question from 106th Constitution Amendment Act of 2023, right? I told you what are all the dimensions that can be asked in the mains examination. So this is for this video. I hope you understood and we discussed all the topics regarding the reservation, the policy of reservation in a very good way, right? So I hope everyone is understanding the lecture of reservation. I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.